may be seated. I will indicate that we have returned from the jury's view. All jurors are present, and we are ready to commence with opening statements. Mr. Caceres is going to present on behalf of the state, and Mr. Rich has indicated he would like to reserve his opening until after the close of the state's evidence. Mr. Caceres, if you want to proceed.
Thank you, Ryan.
Okay, thanks.
The question to you is pretty relevant.
He's very good.
When I got the question today, he was pretty sharp.
He's got a 4-year kind of.
There you go.
When you can read something in the book about deer hunt, when we out there, I said, well, I'm reading this in the book. Okay.
He's got a photographic memory. That's the defendant being interviewed by Dane Howard, who at the time was a Huron County deputy sheriff, and who later became county sheriff. And John Soraya, and you can see John's bald spot. That's John Soraya. John's a BCI agent. We're talking about Steve Gates. Steve Gates' picture is on the left of the screen in front of you. The defendant is next to him. The defendant is talking about Steve Gates having a photographic memory. This is the state of Ohio versus Paul Hicks. Steve Gates has a photographic memory. I'm Senior Assistant Ohio Attorney General Dan Caceres. You met Micah Alt yesterday. Micah is to my right. Huron County Prosecutor Jim Sirley is to Micah's right. And we are the attorneys for the state of Ohio in this case. Well, who are you going to hear from? What are the witnesses going to tell you? And what is this all about? You're going to hear from people who are going to tell you the story of Regina Hicks, the story of the murder of Regina Hicks. The storytellers are friends of Regina Hicks, family members of Regina Hicks, Paul Hicks's family members, Paul Hicks's girlfriends he had in 2001, and a girlfriend he had in 2024, 25. Law enforcement, people who work for the Sheriff's Department, people who work for BCI, Bureau of Criminal Investigation, medical people, or coroners, the Huron County coroner, and she happened to be the Lucas County coroner up in Toledo, an expert on homicide scenes from the Ohio Highway Patrol, and you'll hear from, in interviews that the defendant gave. You'll hear the defendant's words in at least 2 interviews that he gave to law enforcement. His web of deception that he attempted to spread when he spoke with law enforcement. You hear how the defendant tried to manipulate a lie detector test, which he'd agreed to take. You're going to hear how the defendant made up a twin brother that he didn't have, never had, and tried to blame what happened to Regina Hicks on the twin brother. It's in a letter that the defendant wrote his friend Lisa Carroll. And you'll hear recorded conversations between the defendant and Lisa Carroll. Now, this happened back on August 18th, 2001. The sun rose at 7:52 that day, and it set at 6:48. There was light wind, temperatures in the 50s, little or no rain. Typical October day, 2 weeks before Halloween, in the Willard area, Huron County, Ohio. Specifically, 221 North Washington Street, 4463 Town Line Road 12, just outside of Willard, and a pond located at 1987 Section Line Road 30 in Willard. The pond is owned by Richard Metcalf. And you'll have a map, just like you see in front of you, showing you these locations. this crime happened, these crimes happened in Huron County, Ohio, in these locations. Now, to understand what happened here on October 18th, you have to go back to Willard High School. Regina Rowe meets Paul Hicks in high school. They date in high school. They spend a lot of time together in high school. Paul lives with his mother, Jewel, and father, Jackie. Regina lived with her father, Raleigh, and mother, LaSalle Rowe. Regina, however, did spend a lot of time with Paul Hicks and at Paul Hicks's house. Paul Hicks, Regina Rowe's family consists of siblings, Charles and Chad, aunts, Aunt Janet, Uncle Denny, Uncle Eddie, Uncle Carl, and Uncle Jimmy. And she had a lot of cousins, Dustin Patrick, Angela Rowe, Jessica Bays, and others. The defendant, his mother is Jewel Hicks, his sister, Crystal Hicks, the son that he had with with Regina, Montana Hicks, and a couple girlfriends, Donna Cox and Jansen Phipps. On October 1st, 1997, Montana Hicks was born. The couple married a short time later. Regina Hicks would not be able to conceive any more children. Paul and Regina's marriage was not doing very well. It began to crumble. They moved around a lot. There was, in the last couple months of Regina's life, there was verbal abuse, threats. There was a house fire. The couple lived in a house on Route 99. During the house fire resulted in Regina losing a lot of things that her father had given her. The house fire really was the last straw for Regina. She decided it was time to end the marriage. The parties split the proceeds from the insurance company from the house fire, and Regina was breaking away from Paul Hicks. That was in July of 2001. In September of 2001, the parties are discussing getting divorced, and the defendant wants custody of Montana. The defendant does not want to pay child support for Montana. So what does the defendant do? The defendant plants drugs in Regina Hicks's car. Some moldy, old marijuana, and a few pills. He has his friend, Steve Gates, contact the Huron County Sheriff with a tip that there's a motor vehicle being driven by Regina Hicks driving through Willard. And he knew the vehicle was driving through Willard because he was watching the vehicle drive through Willard. The police act on the tip. They pull Regina over and her passenger, Jamie Dutton, and they take Regina out of the car, and they ask Regina, can we search your car? Regina says, yeah, sure, go ahead and search your car. You're not going to find anything. In the trunk of the vehicle, they found the bag with marijuana in it and a couple pills in it, the defendant planted. The police actually believed that Regina did not have any knowledge that the drugs were in the car. They actually believed their story. They didn't charge Regina with any crime, thwarting the defendant's plan to use a drug arrest against the mother of his child in a custody battle. 17 days later, she's dead. The defendant made it clear that he wanted custody. He made it clear that he didn't want to pay child support. The defendant went his separate way and had a couple girlfriends, Jansen Phipps and Donna Cox, who you're going to hear from. You hear both of them testify. The defendant actually had a son by Jansen Phipps. The victim had a new boyfriend, Mike Perkins, who she spent a great portion of the last day of her life with, and a person by the name of Todd Jones. The defendant would tell whoever would listen that Regina Hicks was on drugs, that Regina Hicks was a drug addict, that her family was a bunch of drug traffickers. He fully expected at autopsy, he's telling the police, and you'll hear him tell the police, there's going to be a bunch of drugs in her system. At autopsy, the only thing in her system was acetaminophen. Regina Hicks is now asserting independence from the defendant. She's with Mike Perkins. She bought her dream car, that 1994 white Chevy Camaro. She's looking at buying a four-wheeler. She gets a tattoo. She's buying new clothing. She has a new boyfriend, and she refused to loan the defendant some money when he asked for it. The defendant wanted shared parenting. Regina changed her mind and said, you know what? I want custody. I want you to pay me child support. On October 18th, 2021, that's the day that Regina Hicks' life ended. The day began with Regina and Montana together. Regina drops Montana off at Joel Hicks' house. Joel Hicks being the defendant's mother. The defendant picks Montana up at Joel Hicks' house and calls Steve Gates and says to Steve Gates, hey, let's work at your property on Town Line Road 12. Steve Gates was in the process of building a pond on Town Line Road 12 on his property, the property we drove by this morning. The pond was going to be located where those huge propane tanks are on the property. Obviously the pond wasn't built, but this is where they were building the pond, and you'll see pictures of the pond being built. So that day, Paul Hicks and Steve Gates worked on the pond. It was muddy, it was wet, a little wet. They worked on the pond. Jansen Phipps, Paul Hicks' girlfriend, stops by on the way to work around 4 o'clock, 4:15. She worked at the Havana Tavern. She was a bartender at the Havana Tavern. Lori Greer at the time, Steve Gates' girlfriend, she was helping Steve also around the property that day, doing things in the house. You see, Steve Gates was rehabbing the entire house, the entire property. So when he and Lori would later marry, they could move there and live there. Montana Hicks was present that day. He and his dad rode four-wheelers. They did what a typical dad and son would do, on a particular day. That's what Paul Hicks was doing on October 18th. And there's a picture of the pond that they were building. Regina Hicks, on the other hand, was doing something completely different. Regina Hicks dropped her son off at Joel Hicks' house, went to Burger King and bought some food, bought some French fries. And that's kind of important. We actually have the receipt that Regina Hicks, showing what Regina Hicks bought at Burger King. She then goes back home, leaves the receipt in her house, and then picks up Mike Perkins. And the screen in front of you, there's a picture of Mike Perkins, and there's takes exhibit 1A, a picture of Regina. She picks up Mike Perkins, And they drive to Mansfield. And they go shopping at Mansfield. They go to, I think it's Fye, J.C. Penney's. They go to Bed and Bath Body Works. They spend the day in Mansfield. She had asked her friend, a couple of her friends to go to Mansfield with her. They could not go, so she ended up going with Mike Perkins. On the way back, she stops at Uncle Denny's house. And at Uncle Denny's house, on the way back to Mansfield, her brother's there, a couple of her cousins are there, her Uncle Denny, her Uncle Carl, and they're talking. Regina's in a good mood. They're talking about what they're going to do that night. And Regina makes arrangements. She calls the defendant a couple times. One of the calls, she makes arrangements to pick her son up at Steve Gates' property at 8 o'clock. So after Regina leaves her uncle's property, which is on the way back to Mansfield, she goes to 221 Washington. 221 Washington is where Mike Perkins lived. And Mike Perkins lived in that house with a couple friends. One of the friends' name was Derek Hall. Derek Hall didn't have a car. In fact, neither did Mike Perkins. Derek Hall needed a ride to work. He worked at Hardee's. Regina agreed that, yeah, Derek, sure, I'll take you to work after I pick up Montana, which was right around the corner from where, 5 minutes away from 221 Washington Street. Regina, the plan was to pick up her son, drop her son off at her mother's house, come back, pick up Derek Hall, take Derek Hall to work, and then go out and sing karaoke. That was her plan. At 8 o'clock, Regina arrived at 4463 Town Line Road 12. That's the property owned by Steve Gates. And you see a picture of Steve Gates' house. It takes you to the 25. We were out there this morning, and Steve Gates' house and the car garage, he calls it a car garage, just to the east of the house. Regina, when she arrives, drives down the railroad access road, which is just to the west of the house, and drives in to the backyard. She gets out of the car, and there's an immediate argument with the defendant. They're screaming and yelling at each other, pointing at the ground, arguing about Montana. Steve Gates witnesses this. Steve Gates, he'll tell you on the witness stand, I didn't want anything to do with another one of their arguments. So he goes in the car garage, and he's tinkering with a truck or a tractor. And he puts on WIOT 104.7, and he's listening to rock music. So he's inside the garage for 20, 25 minutes. When he comes out of the garage, the car has now been moved. It's been moved from that area by the access road. It's been moved to the area by where the pond is, or now where that huge propane tank is. And Steve Gates sees the car has been moved, and he sees the light on, the dome light on the car. So he walks up to the car, walks down the driveway there, the road, and when he gets to the car, he's on the driver's side of the car. The passenger door is open. The passenger door is full of mud marks. He sees Regina crumpled at the passenger floorboard. Right, hanging on, like sitting sort of on a chair, the passenger chair, a lot of her body is on the floorboard. And he sees there and says, we gotta help her. We gotta call 911. The defendant says, fuck it, she's dead. He says, no, we gotta get her help. We gotta help her. fuck it, she's dead. Get in the car and follow me. Montana Hicks was sleeping in the back seat of Paul Hicks's car. So you have Paul Hicks's car that's on the property with Montana in the back seat. And you have Regina Hicks's Camaro with Regina Hicks unconscious on the passenger side of her car, the front passenger seat of her car. Paul Hicks had apparently struck Regina in the head. 3 bruises on her head. The forensic pathologist will tell you occurred shortly before she went into the water, shortly before she drowned. We don't know what she was struck with. We don't have the weapon that was used, but we know she was struck in the head. There were also fingertip bruising under her arms, as if she was dragged. There's evidence supporting that she was dragged because there was mud on her back. She's then placed in the car by the defendant. And we're going to have testimony that there was nothing for the defendant to carry his wife. He's carried her over his shoulder in the past. He's carried her in his arms. He's carried her. He puts her in the car. And as he had just put her in the car door was open, and that's when Steve Gates gets to the car. The car itself tells a story. The mud prints on the car are still there. They're still on the door, preserved 24 years later. And they show how Regina Hicks was placed in the passenger seat of that car. No 911, follow me. So what does Steve Gates do? He gets in Paul Hicks's car with Montana supposedly asleep in the back seat and follows the defendant. And what does the defendant do? He gets on Town Road 12, makes a left, and heads to the pond, with Steve Gates following him. Town Road 12, the defendant driving the Camaro to the pond. Now, the defendant himself owned a 1969 Camaro. The defendant himself owned a Mercury Tracer. The defendant himself owned a Geo Prism. The Geo Prism and the Mercury Tracer are small cars. So even though the defendant is 6'4", 6'5", the defendant does not have a problem driving a small car, whether it be a Camaro that he owned, or whether it be Regina's Camaro, or whether it be a Mercury Tracer or Geo Prism. So he drives to Town Line Road 12. Steve Gates follows, or Section Line Road 12 to Section Line Road 30. When they make the right on the Section Line Road 30, Paul Hicks immediately makes a left onto that access road where the Camaro was parked this morning. Steve Gates makes a right, and Steve Gates can't quite get into the access road because the Camaro's there. So he turns around, the first farmhouse on the right, he turns around. And after he turns around, he drives back to the pond. And as he's driving back to the pond, he sees the defendant drive the car into the pond, over the hill and into the pond. Regina Hicks was alive. She was alive in the car when the car went in the pond. There was water in her sinus cavity. There was other water in her system. She was alive. That's where the kidnapping count comes from. Moving a live person from one scene to another, with purpose to cause serious physical harm. That's where the murder comes from. Purposely causing her death, driving that car into the pond. Driving that car into the pond after he kidnapped her, driving that car into the pond after he struck her, rendering her unconscious. Now the car, and there's a picture of the pond as it looked the next day. The car, the driver's side window was open. The passenger side window was about half open. The vents were open, the lights were off. The car's in second gear. This isn't an automatic car, this is a stick. The tilt for the steering wheel is all the way up. Regina's in the passenger seat, and the defendant's driving. Drives the car into the pond. Regina Hicks drowns. Well, what happens next? On the way back to Steve Gates' property, the defendant calls Regina and leaves a voicemail. Hey, where you at? You didn't come at 8 o'clock to pick up Montana. He might even left a couple. He did it in Steve Gates' presence. He then calls Jansen Fix at 9:06 and tells Jansen, hey, Regina didn't show up. I'm at Steve Gates' house. I'm going to take Montana to my sister's house. Meet me there after work. See, after the fire of the house on Route 99, and after the defendant and his wife split up, the defendant was living with his sister Crystal. And you will hear his sister Crystal testify about that today on the witness stand. The defendant is muddy when he gets in the car. He's wet. He just climbed out of a pond. Steve Gates will tell you that there was no reason for the defendant to be muddy or the defendant to be wet, other than the fact that he climbed out of the pond. There are scratches on him. And when his girlfriend and sister notice the scratches on him, he makes up an excuse. Oh, a tree fell on me. But he wasn't cutting any trees down that day that fell on him. And not only that, when he was interviewed by the police actually take his shirt off and ask him about the bruises on his back. And he says, oh, I got hurt four-wheeling. Never tells the police his story about scratch marks on his neck coming from a tree. Maybe because the scratches on his neck didn't come from a tree. Maybe they came from Regina. In any event, the defendant makes a mess at Crystal's house. He turns the bathtub into a mud pond. Mud in the bathroom. I mean, you can make a mud pie with the mud that was in the bathtub. The evidence is going to show. Mud shoes, mud boots, mud. When Crystal comes home from work, she walks into her house and she has a fit. She sees all this mud. So the mud gets cleaned up, and the defendant's muddy boots end up on the back porch of Crystal's house. Jansen Fitz gets off of work around 11:30. She goes to the Ash Street home of Crystal Hicks and spends the evening with Crystal and the defendant. In the middle of the night, the defendant, Fitz is going to tell you, he gets up. She didn't know what he was doing, but he got up. But the next day, the boots are gone. And the defendant says, oh, someone stole my boots. Someone stole my boots. So, the weekend of October 19, 2001, Regina Hicks is in her car in a pond, and she's dead. Now, people are looking for Regina. Her brother, Mike Perkins, they're out driving around looking for Regina. Guess who isn't looking for Regina? The defendant. The defendant's playing softball all day Saturday, part of the day Sunday. He's out getting drunk. He's out with girlfriend Jansen, making plans also to be with girlfriend Donna Cox. He's not out searching for Regina. Mike Perkins blew up Regina's cell phone and answering machine looking for her. Defendant does make a couple phone calls, but we actually have the answering machine that was in her house, and we actually have all the incoming messages asking Regina, where are you? We have the cell phone messages that people left on her cell phone. Where are you at? When on Saturday afternoon, and that would be the 20th, Roger Whetstone goes to the pond. Roger's dad, Richard, owns the pond, owns the property, a farmer in the area. And Roger goes to the pond, and Roger sees something sticking out, appears to be right on the surface of the water. He thinks it's a jet ski. So Roger goes back and talks to his dad, says, hey Dad, there's a jet ski in the pond. And his dad kind of brushes it aside and says, all right, we'll get to it. So the next day was Sunday, it rained, so they didn't make an attempt to find out what was in the pond. The following day is Monday, and that would be the 21st. And Roger Whetstone and his dad go to a neighbor's house and they get a boat, a rowboat. And they take some rope with them and a hook. And what they're going to do is they're going to hook the jet ski and tie the rope from the hook to the truck that they own, and they're going to pull the jet ski out of the water. That's the plan. So they go back to the pond, and Roger gets in the boat, rows out, wasn't that far away, but he rows out to this object, and he hooks the object. And then from there, the other end of the rope is connected to the truck, and the truck goes forward. And they begin to pull this object out of the water. And then the hatchback pops open as the rear end of the Camaro is coming out of the water, and they see it's a car. Some items that were in the car floated out of the car and onto the shore. Regina Hicks's purse, the FYE bag, some other bags floated to the surface. When they see this as a car and not a jet ski, they go back to their house and they call the sheriff's department. Sheriff's department comes out. Sheriff's department comes out, but they're not alone. They also bring the Willard Fire Department has divers, a dive team. These divers go into the water, and they'll describe to you what happened when they went into the water. It was cold, it was dark, they actually couldn't see. They're blind going into the water. So they go into the water, and when they go on the passenger side of the vehicle, they put their hands through the window, they feel an arm, they feel a neck, they feel a head. We have a person in this car. They tell the sheriff, Sheriff Sutherland, who went to the scene, that there's a body in this car. At that point in time, the tow truck pulls the vehicle out of the car. The car then is taken from the scene to the Willard Police Department where it can be processed. Divers, they find the body, pull the car out, they take it to the Willard Police Department. They gather material from the car. Whatever was in the car, shopping, compact or CDs, makeup, female hygiene, was gathered as evidence. They take pictures. They take pictures of the vehicle, they take pictures of Regina Hicks, They take pictures of the pond. They document everything that they can. They process the car. They actually measured the distance, the door distance, also the distance between the seat and the ceiling. John Soraya from BCI did that. They begin an investigation after the car is pulled from the pond. And here's the drawing that, or the work that John Soraya did measuring the car. The investigation. Investigation starts, and they bring the defendant in. The defendant implies that Regina committed suicide. Implies that she's not stable. Says she was on drugs. Says she was a drug addict. Says that she never showed up. She never came to Steve Gates' house. She said that she was hanging around drug dealers, Mike Perkins and other drug dealers, and her Uncle Carl was the biggest drug dealer in Willard, and her family's full of drug dealers, and that he said that Regina drowned. He actually said that Regina drowned before the coroner determined that Regina drowned. He was offered to take a polygraph. And he agreed. Steve Gates was also interviewed. Steve Gates discussed what happened on October 18th. He tells the sheriff that Regina didn't show up. And he tells the sheriff that he left around 9 o'clock, went to an ATM machine, which is true, went and got his clothes from his mother's house, which is true, and went to work, which is true. But he lied. And he's going to get up on the witness stand, and he's going to admit to you that he lied. He lied to the sheriff's department. He lied for 24 years. So, while the police department, the sheriff's department, while they're investigating what happened to Regina, the defendant does his own investigation. And the defendant's investigation is how to manipulate a polygraph machine. So the defendant watches movies, reads books, learns what drug he can take, learns what drug he can drink. The day the polygraph is scheduled, he buys a fifth of Jim Beam and drinks a couple shots from it. And he admits it. He tells Mike White that this is what he did. He also admits to taking 3 Xanax, 5 milligrams Xanax that he claims a buddy gave him the day he was supposed to take the polygraph. Well, recognizing this attempt to manipulate the polygraph, Mike White, the polygrapher, decides I'm going to talk him out of taking the polygraph. And that's what he does. The polygraph test is never administered. And Mike White asked him, well, the defendant actually walked in and kind of, at the beginning, told Mike White what he had done. And you'll have the transcript of the interview that Mike White conducted with the defendant. And you'll actually see it. And we'll have the transcript on the screen on the right, and we'll have the interview on the left. So you can watch Mike White interview the defendant, and other people for that matter too, and you can read what they're saying. But the investigation goes cold. After a period of time, no new leads come in, and the investigation goes cold. And from 2005 to 2015, it was pretty cold. Every now and then, Dave Battles was working on some things, and you'll hear Dave Battles testify. He was putting together phone summaries. Every now and then, somebody would be interviewed by Dave Battles and Dane Howard, but the case went cold. Until about 2015. 2015, the BCI is now involved in the investigation, as well as the Ohio Attorney General's Organized Crime Unit section. There's an attorney from the Organized Crime Unit section who's involved involved with this case now. And Dane Howard and this attorney meet with Steve Gates in 2015. And Steve Gates says, hey, I want to talk to my lawyer. My lawyer's name is Neil McGowan. Here's his card. Call him. Steve Gates wanted to talk in 2015. What happened? Nobody called Neil McGowan. Law enforcement dropped the ball. Did not contact Neil McGowan. So, that's a picture of Dane Howard and Steve Gates talking in September of 2015. And Steve Gates is giving Dane Howard Neil McGowan's card and asking the attorney from the Attorney General's office to contact Neil McGowan. Well, that never happens. The case, however, Steve Gates wanted to talk, but no one got back with his attorney. 2019, by this time, BCI agent Chris Hamburg is now in charge of the investigation. And Lori Braunschweiger is assisting him. Lori is a criminal analyst for BCI. And Lori will testify on the witness stand about the investigation. In 2019, BCI is now investigating new leads. The leads proved to be false, but they're investigating new leads. Jim Sitterly is a new county prosecutor, new vision, new way of doing things. And Jim Sitterly wants the Special Prosecution Section of the Ohio Attorney General's office to assist. And that's where Micah and I come in. In 2000, the judge appoints the Attorney General's office to assist the Huron County prosecutor in this case. And the investigation starts, but this time things are different. It's a renewed investigation. Scores of people are re-interviewed. This wasn't some internet fad started by some podcaster in 2024. This was an investigation that started in 2021, 2022, where more than 80 people were interviewed. More than 80 people were met with and talked to. There was a process that Lori and Chris Hamburg went through to get these people interviewed. Now we're in the winter of 2024, 2025, and it's time to meet with Steve Gates. So we meet with Steve Gates, and Steve Gates asserts his Fifth Amendment rights and hands me his lawyer's business card, Bernard Davis. And you'll see Bernard Davis in the courtroom when Steve Gates testifies. I call his lawyer. We have a meeting at Bernard Davis's office with Doug Burke, the case agent, Chris Hamburg, the former case agent, Micah, Jim Sirley, myself, and Lori. We meet with Bernard Davis, and he tells us, he said, look, my guy's kept this inside of him for 24 years. He hasn't even told his wife. He wants to come clean. He wants to tell you everything he remembers, everything he knows about Paul Hicks. Paul Hicks killed his wife. But he wants immunity. He wants immunity from prosecution. He's not involved in the killing. He's involved in the cover-up because he lied to the sheriff's department about what happened. So he wants immunity from being, for his role in the cover-up. Jim Sirley, the county prosecutor, says, okay, I will ask the judge to give Steve Gates immunity. The judge is asked to give Steve Gates immunity, and he grants Jim's request, the state of Ohio's request, and Steve Gates is granted immunity. And he will testify for full immunity except he is not immune from perjury or obstructing justice. He can't get on the witness stand and perjure himself or obstruct justice. Steve Gates wants immunity, he gets it. He's on dialysis 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. He's in kidney failure. After 24 years of holding it in, and like I said, didn't even tell his wife, he comes clean. And what does he tell us? He tells us that Regina Hicks was there at 8 o'clock at night to pick up Montana. He tells us that Paul and Regina Hicks argued, that he went in the car garage. He tells us that he was in the car garage for 20, 25 minutes, came out, saw the car had been moved and the dome light was on. Walked up to the car and saw Regina Hicks motionless in the passenger floorboard. Tells us the defendant drove Regina Hicks's car to the pond and drove Regina Hicks's car into the pond. He saw the car going into the pond. He saw the taillights going into the pond. He says the defendant then came out of the pond area, got in the car, said to Hicks said to Gates, hey, you're involved. You're involved in this too. You got to keep your mouth shut. And he did. And there's the picture of State Exhibit 90B, which is the access road to the pond. There are 2 concrete blocks at the end of the access road. The evidence will be that the car was driven over the pond just to the left of the bricks or the stone. By the defendant. The charges. Count 1, defendant had purposely caused the death of Regina Hicks. Count 2, it's a statute that's referred to as the felony murder statute. Causing the death of another as a result of committing an offense of violence. That offense of violence is kidnapping. Count 3 is another count of murder. Causing the death of Regina Hicks after committing the offense of felonious assault. And count 4 is kidnapping. The judge is going to define these terms for you and what they mean at the close of the case. The judge is going to, there's 1 death, but it's been charged 3 different ways. The judge will explain all that to you. Judge Conway will explain all that to you at the close of the case. So, you also may hear some additional testimony. Steve Gates is a liar. Well, that's true. He lied in 2001, he lied in 2002 when he was interviewed by the police. He could have continued lying. Nothing would have happened to him. He had nothing to gain by coming clean. Steve Gates will tell you that. But he told us what he told us, and what he told us is actually, a lot of it can be corroborated. It can be corroborated by Jimmy Patrick, Regina Hicks's uncle, who on his way to work saw Regina Hicks's car parked on Steve Gates's property. He worked for the railroad. He was driving down Town Line Road 12 on his way to, I think it was refill or deal with an engine, and saw the vehicle. He saw the vehicle. You remember what you heard from the defendant himself about Steve Gates at the beginning of my presentation. He has a photographic memory. Steve Gates' testimony will be corroborated in some part by Jamie Dutton. by homicide scene expert Rick Wells, by forensic pathologist Diane Barnett, by the defendant's phone records, bank records, by employment records of Steve Gates. Steve Gates' testimony will make sense. And we believe that the evidence will show you that the defendant killed his wife. You're also going to hear the defendant talking about, in his interviews with the police, his wife, talking about her drug use. She's a drug addict, suicidal, mentally unstable. But the evidence is going to be you can't commit suicide when someone else is driving a car and you're in the passenger seat and the car goes into a pond. There's no evidence that Regina Hicks was driving that vehicle. There's no evidence that Regina Hicks floated from the driver's seat to the passenger seat, which is what would have had to happen if she was going to commit suicide. Her relatives will also tell you, when they saw her that day, she was not suicidal. She was in good spirits, feeling great, happy to be moving on with her life and getting away from the defendant. There's no evidence in her system at autopsy of drugs, other than acetaminophen. None whatsoever. She was happy, moving on with her life, with a new man. In a jail call, the defendant tells his son, or in a recorded phone call, the defendant tells his son Montana, and you'll hear that phone call, that he thought Regina just got drunk. He made that claim. Just wondering, the defendant said, or Montana says, right, the defendant says, just continue working over this. I thought your mom got drunk again and was hungover, and that's why she didn't show up. So she's either on drugs, or she's a drunk, or she's committing suicide. There was no alcohol found in her system either. What was found in her system were those French fries that she bought at Burger King earlier in the day. So the evidence is going to be that the defendant had the motive to kill Regina Hicks. The evidence is going to be that it's the defendant who benefits from the death of Regina Hicks.
Regina, Montana, when he was 3.5, 4 years old, and Montana said he was with his daddy and mommy that night. Which he was.
It's the defendant that tells his friend Lisa Carroll that he and Montana and Regina were together that night. But 24 years earlier, he told the police that they weren't. He slipped up. Four-year-old Montana was in the back seat of a car being driven by Steve Gates when his dad drove his mother to her death. The evidence is going to convict Paul Hicks of these charges. We'll prove that to you beyond a reasonable doubt. The defendant killed his wife. The defendant. Thank you.
All right, thank you.